Hello everyone, my name is Pino. In this video, we determine the partial derivative of f with respect to x, and then with respect to y, and then again with respect to x. And our f was given as x raised to the power 4 multiplied by y squared minus x cubed multiplied by y. So we first determine the partial derivative of f with respect to x, and this will be equals to, so for now we are going to consider the y squared and that y as constants. So the derivative of the x raised to the power 4 will be equals to the 4 from the exponent of the x multiplied by x raised to the power 4, and since we are differentiating with respect to x, we minus 1 from the exponent of the x, and we multiply this by that y squared minus the derivative of the x raised to the power 3, which will be equals to the exponent of the x, the 3, we multiply it with the x raised to the power 3, and since we are differentiating with respect to x, we are going to minus 1 from the exponent of the x, and we multiply this by that y. Therefore, the partial derivative of the f with respect to x will be equals to 4 multiplied by x raised to the power 4 minus 1. The 4 minus 1 is equals to 3 multiplied by also the y squared minus 3 multiplied by x raised to the power 3 minus 1, which is equals to 2 multiplied by y. So now that we determined the partial derivative of the f with respect to x, we are going to differentiate it with respect to y, and this will be equals to, so we are going to consider the x cubed like a constant, just like the 4. So we have the 4 multiplied by x raised to the power 3, and now the derivative of the y squared with respect to y will be the exponent of the y, which is equals to the 2. We multiply it with the y squared, but since we are differentiating with respect to y, we minus 1 from the exponent of the y minus the 3x squared, which we consider to be constants for now, and we differentiate the y. The derivative of this y will be equals to 1. So the partial derivative of the f with respect to x and then with respect to y will be equals to, that 4 multiplied by that 2 will be equals to 8 multiplied by x raised to the power 3 multiplied by y raised to the power 2 minus 1, which is equals to 1, minus 3x squared multiplied by 1, which will be equals to the 3x squared. So now that we determine the partial derivative of f with respect to x and with respect to y, again now we determine with respect to x. And this will be equals to the 8 multiplied by the derivative of the x raised to the power 3, which will be equals to the exponent of the x, which is the 3. We multiply it with the x raised to the power 3, and we minus 1 from the exponent of the x since we are differentiating with respect to x, and we have to multiply this by that y minus 3 multiplied by the derivative of the x squared. The exponent of the x is the 2, so we are going to multiply the 2 with the x squared, but then we minus 1 from the exponent of the x. So the partial derivative of the f with respect to x and then with respect to y and then again with respect to x will be equals to 8 multiplied by 3, which is equals to 24 multiplied by x raised to the power 3 minus 1. 3 minus 1 is equals to 2 multiplied by y minus the 3 multiplied by 2, which is equals to 6, and the x raised to the power 2 minus 1 will be equals to x. And this will be the partial derivative of the f with respect to x and then with respect to y and then again with respect to x. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and sharing the channel with your fellow mates.